Ohio. Cool.
Very, very good. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this terrific class where we're going to do step by step on how to draw this beautiful flower bouquet. I can't wait for you folks to
Mhm.
see it. Before we start our project today, we just have a few items to go over to ensure that everyone can have the best class experience possible. Firstly, this class is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our Michaels Store YouTube channel in about 24 hours. And then it'll reappear on our michaels.com/classes webpage the next day. So consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on those class recordings. If you happen to need to go back and review stuff, or I know this is part one of a two-part kind of class. So if you need to go back to part one before part two, things like that, you'll be able to do so via our YouTube channel. If you're making along with our instructor today, don't forget to tag Michaels with our hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Michaels Classes when sharing pictures of your work on social media. We'd love to see it. Um, During class, you'll be able to interact with the instructor and moderators using the Zoom chat function. If you don't want to see chat during class, that's perfectly fine. You can turn it off in the Zoom settings. If you're on a tablet or mobile device, you'll see the three dots and then the word more under them. Click the chat option and then click the bell-shaped button in the corner of the screen. That'll help it disappear. And if you're on a computer, you can click on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, which will open up the chat window on the right. And then you can click the little arrow at the top of that section, choosing pop out or close or whatever it is that you want to do to make it a more comfortable viewing experience for you. For the best view, also, we want to suggest that you are watching in speaker view. That way, we'll be able to highlight our terrific instructor and then the work that she is doing. So you can see it close right up in center. If you would like as well, if you want to see the whole gallery view and see everybody working on their projects, you can, of course, work in gallery view as well. Um, we do have automatic closed captioning enabled for the meeting, so you can turn those on in the settings under the three dots section that we mentioned before, and clicking the meeting settings with the gear on, clicking on closed captions if you'd like to use those. And finally, of course, if you have any technical issues at all during the class, feel free to send me a message. I'll be able to try and help you as best as I can and answer any questions for you. But without further ado, let's hand it over to the Copic team and Shannon, our terrific instructor.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining. We have a pretty big class today. So after I do this introduction, we'll switch to my tabletop view and you guys will get a better view here of what I'm going to do today. But a little background on me. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, and I received a BFA in illustration. And I've been using Copic markers probably since I was around 13. So I have a really big love for markers and pens. And today, though, I'm going to show my drawing process and how I get to my compositions. And then I'll show you how I outline with my Copic multiliner pens. And I did see someone ask in the chat where part 2 is going to be. Basically, today I'm going to show drawing and outlining, and then in July for our next class, I will show the coloring. So today it's just going to be drawing and outlining. In July, I will show coloring. So I think that's about it to get started. Let's go ahead and spotlight my overhead view.
And
Perfect.
Shannon, right as we get started, I need to ask, what size paper do we need?
Oh, yes. Okay. So this drawing over here to my left, I'm going to refer to the whole time. And this is 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So basically, I just have like a Nina cardstock, basic kind of 65 to 70 pound paper. It's a little bit thicker, so it won't, bleed onto the other side. And I like working on that kind of paper. But over here, because this is just going to be for our drawing purposes, this is just like a sketchbook sheet of paper. This one's a little bit like the white tonality is a little bit different, but basically just a sketch sheet of paper is good. And we're going to start with the drawing later on when we're doing outlining. This is a different sheet of paper. This is like a tracing paper. So notice when I press it on top of this, you can see pretty much right through it. And that's going to, we're going to use this paper for the outlining portion. So this is off to the side for now, but this is just a scratch sheet of paper. And again, this drawing is going to be available for the next month's class where we're just focusing on coloring. So, so yeah, I'm just going to have this and then I'll go ahead and get started. So over here, I just have, again, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I drew a line down the middle. Let me try and scoot this over so you see the whole paper. Okay, and then, yeah, so I just took a ruler and all I did was measure, 4 1/4, and I drew a line straight down. That's all I did. And then I drew, took my ruler again, and all I did was just make a mark about 1 1/4 inch from the top and 1 1/4 from the bottom. Let me move these pens. Over here, that's what I did to get started. So as you can see, this top point is about 1 1/4 down from the top, and the little stems here are about 1 1/4 from the bottom, just so that it's kind of centered in the middle of my page. I don't want too many things going kind of off of it. I like it kind of centered. This line, it's not tip to tip on the page. It's just kind of a line to, gauge my sketch. And then how I get started. So this is kind of the main beginning part to get the skeleton down. And so I have a geometric kind of flower shape here, a larger, more organic shape here, and then something kind of in between up here. And I'm going to lift this to get this to the screen. But what I did is kind of divide it into a triangle. So I have this kind of line going across. So it has a little bit more balance in the group of 3 right there. And yeah, I just have little stems down at the bottom, but I think by kind of balancing them like this in a triangular format really brings the balance to the whole bouquet. So I'm going to start with those 3 major shapes, and then I'll get into this, filigree and other little smaller things that are in the background. But yeah, so to get started, I'm just going to kind of, eyeball it from one half of my page to the other. And I'm very lightly going to draw like a circle. So I'm just going to very lightly draw a circle. This is probably 2 inches up from this bottom line here because I want room for the stems, but I'm drawing in a circle over here. And I'm just going over it again and again to kind of establish that area. And it's pretty light right now, but that's because I'm going to draw in details later. And then I have a larger shape on the opposite side, and I'm going to move kind of up in a little angle on my composition. So again, loosely drawing a bigger circle, and it doesn't have to be an exact circle. Like this is just a very loose planning. This is just planning where it's going to go. And then I'll draw like a mid-size or maybe smaller size up here at the top. So again, I'm getting in that triangular shape, from one flower to another to another. So we've got this kind of dynamic triangle here. Okay, so yeah, I'll stop there. And this is a little bit below that 1 1/4 line I gave myself as a guide. We might end up going a little bit higher, but this is good. I think this is good for starting. And then next down here, since I'm going to kind of draw this kind of like a tree trunk. So these have curves right here where the stem gets bunched in the bow. So I'm going to draw basically kind of like a little tree trunk. And let's gauge, maybe this is probably 1/2 inch on either side, maybe 3/4 on either side. So from this middle line, I'm going to kind of put a dot over here, and maybe that's about 3/4. And over here, I'll do the same thing. I like to draw dots and kind of connect them. And yeah, so I'm just going to draw a curve, like a tree trunk, essentially. I'm going to draw one curve very lightly on my page and another curve. So it's kind of like an hourglass shape or like a tree trunk. But let me lift this up. So we've got the very base, the skeleton of this drawing. So it's looking kind of strange right now, but this is going to really help us as we add the details. Okay, so I'm going to start with this bottom area here. And this is, again, more of a geometric pattern. So I'm going to start with this middle circle and then blossom and kind of work my way out. So in about the center of this bigger circle, I'm going to lightly draw in a very small circle and just kind of, go over it a few times to get that approximation. And then if you look at this shape, it's kind of like a star. So maybe down here, I'll just show it as an example, like a star shape like this, but I drew it the other way around. So it has 5 different points, essentially. So I'm going to try and draw little lines. So I'm drawing like a V shape from the middle of this circle. I'm drawing a V shape at the top because right here we've got a nice V shape. So I'm just drawing in that shape right there. And then I'm just going to take from the middle and draw a line straight down because that is this area here. So now we've got this Y. And then I will draw a wider V shape, kind of like a mountain, off to the sides. So now we've got 5 different lines that we can use as a guide to create those first 5 petals. So now I'm going to go in the middle of each of these areas and connect them. And again, I'm still working pretty light. I'm just going over my lines again and again to kind of build them up. And the reason I draw very light, let's say if I press too hard, that's very dark, but it can also be harder to erase later on. So when I'm starting off drafting, I always like to work a little bit lighter. And yeah, I'm just going to connect it up here, work slowly around this. And connect these to the lines. This might not look exactly like my other drawing, but this basically gets the same technique that I used. So there we go. There's our first kind of inside area of this more geometric looking. And now I'm going to go from the tip of each of these. And I'll lift this up because I want to make sure you see this, but I'm going to go from the tip of each of these and create like a little dome shape to connect them. So I'm going to do that on every single one. Just make a little dome shape to connect those tips of the petal. So I will go ahead and start to do that over here. Connecting these. And I do want to mention too, graph paper or like gridded paper, when you're first learning how to draw, or if you're drawing a lot of geometric shapes, they really do help a lot. I just think more people have just a regular piece of paper. So I do want to show how I kind of make my own, I guess, grid or guides. Okay, so there we go. I've added that second layer of petals, just connecting each tip. And then as you notice over here, there's an even bigger petal that connects the middle of each of these. So for that, I'm going to do something a little bit similar to what I did down here. I'm going to draw a straight line up because this will help. And it's the same thing over here. I'll draw a line from that middle point and go out. And I'm just repeating that on every single one, trying to get that line to get in the middle of each of these, because this is going to help connect the arch. So these guidelines are really helpful. And I know when I went to art school, and let's say you're just trying to transfer a sketch to a larger scale image, grids and having these kind of proportions as a guide really, really help, especially with large scale drawings. But yeah, so we've got this larger area of lines drawn. And now I'm just going to connect these. So I'm going to take the middle of each of these. I'm outlining them with dots so y'all can see them a little better. And I'm going to take this and bring it over. So there we go. Oh, and if you want, maybe I can continue these lines. So the lines from the inside, if you want, you can bring those out even more. I don't want you guys to get confused though. With so many lines, sometimes this can get kind of funky, but it'll help to get the center of this largest petal. So I'm just going to keep bringing it around. And if you notice at this point, I'm kind of reaching where I drew that first circle. So this is actually working really well. That outer circle gives me a good layout idea of how much I want it to expand. So those initial sketches and laying out your composition, they really come in hand, sorry. So I'm just connecting these, trying to keep inside this outer circle here. And there we go. So it might look difficult, and first glance at this drawing, it might look like, oh my God, how'd she do that? But it really is as simple as using these grid lines and kind of connecting the dots, and a little bit of patience and practice, but it can be achieved. So this is what I've got so far. So we've got that inner circle, those first little petals, the second layer, and now our third layer. And all of these lines here help us to connect. And the last thing we can do over here, I just kind of made another layer of 2 little petals followed by a bigger petal. So in these areas, I made another petal, and I'm just going to do that real quick. And I'm just connecting, like, if you think of these as maybe hills, for example, this is like a little valley. So I'm making like a little rainbow over a valley. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's all I'm doing here. Just finishing up this shape. And Nate, are there any questions going on in the chat, or am I doing okay?
You're doing all right. We got someone asking to slow down. I figure, I'm not sure how much time we have, but like I said, this class is being recorded. So if there's anything that you miss, definitely check it out on Michael's YouTube channel. And then you can review the class there. Yeah. Just like Nate P said.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm going fast. I'll stop here just a little bit. But yeah, all I'm doing is following these grids. And at this point, I'm just going to make a few little petals here on the outside. And then I will just kind of take a little break before I move on to the big one. So I'm just going to finish off with some petals and basically just connect them following these grids. So right now, I'm just going to connect these. And because of all these grid lines, this is relatively simple to finish out because I know where the center lines are. And I am using a mechanical pencil. I'm really comfortable with mechanical pencils. I like how sharp they are. But if you're using a regular pencil too, just make sure, you don't press too hard or, I guess I don't know, they get kind of flat really quickly. So I always have to keep sharpening them all the time. But yeah, I'll stop here. Sorry, I dropped that. And I'm just gonna wait a little bit. And while I'm kind of waiting for, letting people have some more time, I'm gonna start to erase a little bit. So this is just like a pencil eraser. I've had this since college. I don't even know what brand this is anymore, but I just use it for the precision. So I'm going to erase inside this outside area just to kind of get rid of those lines and so I can see what it looks like. Just going over that real quick. Okay. Yeah, that looks nice. So I will pick this up. I want you guys to see that. And it has actually lined up pretty well with that initial sketch of where our stems are going to go. So this is nice. And this is, again, more of a geometric kind of abstract looking flower. It's not a realistic one, but this gives you a good idea of what it, you know, drawing a mandala shape, or, you know, drawing those stylized kind of Zentangle designs. So, and now I'm going to move on to the big one. So this one might be a little more complicated, but bear with me. I'll make sure I slow down if I see it in the chat. But yeah, so this shape, and I will bring my original drawing here. So this one's pretty big, and this one's kind of the showstopper of the bouquet. And so I have this kind of central bulb here. That's pretty easy to draw. It's a good centerpiece. And then I'll have one layer of these curling flowers. They kind of remind me of a wave when it starts to crest. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of going to do that 2 times. And I don't know what the name of that flower is. If I haven't, any people that are knowledgeable on flowers in the chat, let me know. But yeah, so what I'm going to do here, since this bulb is kind of centered, I'm going to put it around the middle of this circle. So I'm just going to draw another circle within the circle. Looks like a succulent. Okay, yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, let me see. So another circle in the circle, and maybe about 1 inch diameter is what I'm going to draw. And it kind of looks like a donut right now, actually, at this point. I do, yeah, it's looking like a donut. So we have a big outer circle. We've got a little circle in the middle. And, oh, I see something in the chat for mechanical pencil. Yeah, so 6B to 6H, that is a good question. So I think this is a HB lead that I'm using, but 6B, the further in the Bs that you go with pencils, the lighter and the darker, sorry, the more, I guess, like dense the pigment will be, and the more it looks like an ebony pencil. And then if you're using like a 6H, those are super light leads, but they have more clay in it, so they're pretty hard and tough. But I just use a basic HB, maybe an H. And then I just have like a regular eraser off to the side. And I don't know what brand this is, I'm really sorry, but I know I've seen this at Michael's before. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of mimic this shape, right? So I'm going to draw basically straight in the middle of this donut, and I have it at a little slant, right? Because I kind of like, you know, this flower is going off in this direction, this flower up here is going in that direction. So I like to keep it kind of every other and switch it. And since this is going in this kind of direction, I'm going to draw a line down the middle of just this central area. And again, it's at a slant, kind of like how the earth is on a slant. And I'm going to draw an oval shape. Pretty skinny oval shape, but I'm just going to draw an oval right there. And then I will start to draw one on the left, and keeping to the shape of my circle. And then I'll draw one on the right. Or an axis, yeah, that's the right word. You guys are doing a lot better with the English in the chat than I am here. Okay, and then over to the other side, I'm just repeating left, right, left, right. And they're kind of they're curling around this shape here at the bottom. So we're gonna get a nice cup. And now I'm gonna bring from the inside of these last shapes, I'm gonna bring this around. So now we start to see a little bit of a curl. And I'll lift this up here in a second whenever I'm done. So it's closer to the camera. I'm bringing that around, and then I'm going to draw 2 in the middle, or maybe 3 in the middle. And then these will curl in. Okay, now I'm going to lift it up. Okay, so yeah, I drew it at an axis. I want to make sure this is focused on my camera view. I'm sorry if it's a little blurry. But yeah, so I drew one here as an axis, and then I kind of repeated back and forth around the side. And oh, there we go. There's a good focus. Okay. And then I just connected it at the top. And there's no specific amount. I'm just trying to fill that circle that I drew. And so that's all I'm doing there. And then I will start to add these fancy looking petals. So I'm going to start at the top. And these are a little bit smaller shapes. And like I think I mentioned this earlier, they kind of look like waves about to crest. So I'm going to draw a curve, just like a little curved line. And then I'm going to draw another curve here. And now I'm going to bring a line and kind of make a little swoop, just a little swoop, and then connect it. And there we have one. And I will repeat that on the opposite side. Maybe make this one a little bit shorter. Something's sticking here, sorry. And then another line, kind of a little bit underneath it. And then like a swooping shape around. So again, here we go. Oh, okay, there we go. So I drew two kind of curved shapes and then a little kind of, it almost looks like an apostrophe shape to kind of show that the petal is curling and that it has dimension. And you can vary these kind of curls at the top. So notice over here, right? This is my example. I kind of have different variations of curves, but these shapes right here, it just looks like a comma or a parentheses mark. Has that like beefier area at the top, then curls down to a skinnier part. So that's what I'm going to kind of keep doing and repeating. And for flower shapes like this, when it has so much repetition, after a while, maybe like on the outside, they'll come more naturally the more you practice it. But this is what we're going to be focusing on here. And so the only variation that happens is like down here, for example, they get a little bit wider because of the perspective, but that's going to show the dimensionality. So that's what we're up to. Okay. So I'm going to bring another curl shape up and I'm going to work from here and just keep alternating back and forth as I create the bottom shape. And so I'll bring another curl. So this one's a little bit taller. They're not exactly parallel. And then I will bring this up and around. There we go. And I'm actually pressing harder to the paper so you guys can see this because I know I want you guys to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to automatically repeat that on the other side. And bring that curl kind of apostrophe, like this, or like depending on the typeface you're using, for a word, you have this kind of curly looking shape. And that's what we're doing here at the top. It's the best comparison I can think of at the top of my head. Okay, another, and then these can be like right next to each other as you're drawing, or you can leave some space since there's going to be a second layer right behind it. So maybe I'll bring this shape out more and add another little kind of hump shape or like a little bump. And I'll repeat that on this side. Just going back and forth, left to right. So yeah, right here with the curl, I can come in, draw another little bump, and then finish it off. So I hope that I'm going to draw this further back in my hand to bring in that curl. It doesn't have to always be just the straight line. And yeah, I'll just keep working around. This one does take more time. Okay, we're halfway through the class. Okay, just looking at my time to make sure. And this is going to get pretty repetitive, but as we move down, the petals that were kind of close to the top, they'll start to have more weight and fall more. So that's why we're going to have more of like a droopy effect as we move down because the gravity of the petal. So I just need to make sure I keep that in mind. This one will be pretty much just straight out. Let's see there. And again, I like to work automatically left to right, especially when I'm making a design like this, where there's so much repetition. And I want to make sure they're kind of equal on the same side. Okay. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. I just want to make sure I show you guys how to draw 3 different flowers. And then I'm sure Nate has been saying in the chat, like, you can watch it later. But yeah, so here I go. Now I'm towards the bottom. So these shapes I should be making a little bit wider. Kind of like, yeah, right around there. So a little bit wider. And you're gonna get like a nice cup shape here towards the bottom. And then we'll bring in the petals around like that. So I'm kind of doodling up here at the top. This might, I have to erase that later, but that's okay. So I'm bringing that around, and maybe this one will kind of overlap it. And I'm just drawing little curves. And then I'll bring this one. This will be maybe our last one here on this first layer. There we go. So that's a pretty loose idea, and it doesn't look exactly like this one. I spent more time on this one, but that's the general gist. So now we've got one layer of kind of like spindly flower petals here. And this does look a lot different than the geometric one. So again, depending on what you're wanting to draw, I do want to show like 3 different types. Okay, and then if there's any questions in the chat while I do this second layer, let me know. But basically, the second layer now, these are just bigger petals. So we're gonna have a wider width, and we can draw more like wavy shapes now because they're getting larger. So I'm going from behind these, and I'm gonna draw that curl. So there's more wave to this outer layer here. And I will immediately draw another one over here. And kind of connect that. There we go. And oh, I do want to mention, I'm going to probably like overlap these a little bit so I make sure my line is consistent. So that's where these erasers come in handy, because I just drew over this, but with these little erasers for detailing and getting those tight spaces free of the extra layers, really helpful. Okay, there we go. Is everyone doing good so far? Thumbs up. Everyone's doing good? Okay, sweet. And I will keep kind of spacing them out at a distance here and curve this around. There we go. Oh, I just lost my lead. Let's hope I have some more in here. Nope, I need to get a new pencil, sorry. Okay, this one's good. Take that lead. Okay, now I'll keep going and bring this up. Curve that line. Yeah, I hate it when that happens with my mechanical pencils. User error. Okay, and now I'm getting towards the bottom. So I'm going to make these shapes a little bit wider. And that's where I get these kind of wavy crest. They look a little different because the viewpoint is different. So a little change in perspective, but we can easily make that adjustment here. Okay, and this will kind of cup outwards. This shape here is almost like the tree trunk at the bottom. So I'm curling it out in both directions. And then I'll make a little cup, like a bowl down here. And then I'll draw in this little kind of squiggle here. There we go. And these lines don't go to the very edge of the petal because the edges out here, those are the widest part, but what you can't see underneath it is how it's curling. So I never really line it up exactly on these areas at the bottom, just because of the perspective. So I'm gonna basically finish up the circle, finish up this flower. And I really appreciate you guys joining me today. This is really fun. Okay, and then just draw little squiggles. And yeah, this part, so this is really neat. So whenever we color this, right, let me lift this up real quick. So what I did right there, this little area is actually part of this petal. So whenever we color this, you know, in July, this will really show some depth and layering like that. So it's really going to be pretty neat and dynamic there. Okay, keep bringing this around. I always love it when my drawings kind of have that dimensionality. Curve. Okay, there we go. And now since these petals are kind of flattened, now they're going to start to curl up again as we get to the top. Okay. And I'm sticking to this big circle as a guide. Now again, I didn't go down as much as I had initially thought with that circle, but we are getting to a pretty generic shape here. It's getting that general gist. I maybe have 2 petals left here, and then this one will be done. Bring that around. I got 1 more, and then I'll take a little pause. How am I looking on time? 20 minutes left? Okay. There we go. So I'll lift this up so y'all can see, but that is the basics of that second flower. And notice we do have a lot of white space in between here. So if you want to add some more in there in the middle, in between everything, you know, please feel free. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to move on so I can show you these and then how to draw with the multiliner pen. Okay, so slight pause. And this last one's really easy. I drew kind of curves to each petal, but you can draw them straight if you want. And but yeah, these are kind of basic petal shapes, like little teardrops. So I'm going to just reiterate this circle because I think it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, so I've got 1 type of flower, 1 type of flower, and a 3rd type with these kind of little details and seedlings in the middle. So same thing over here. I've established like a central point. I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I will establish a central point. I'm going to do this a little differently. This one I kind of put in the downward area and made petals out here larger than these ones, but I'll do it actually central for this one. Oh, I think I see someone in the chat that says, yeah, if you don't have a multi-liner pen, you can just use a normal pen. Oh, it looks like Medusa's hair. Oh yeah, it kind of does. You're right. Okay, so now I've drawn, excuse me, this little dot here. And what I'm going to do is actually start with the petals, and then I'll add the details in after that, just because the lines that you use to connect, here, I'll lift this up. So the lines that you use to connect these little ovals to the middle, I can get kind of confused with the petal outlines. So I'm going to start with the petals first and then draw the connectors because I easily get confused. So that's what I'm going to do here. Okay. And so I'm just going to start with petals, and this one's pretty simple. I'm going to draw a line straight down the middle of this circle. Ish. I'm kind of looking at this straight line with the ruler I drew, And so I drew a line, and I'm going to turn my paper, and I'm going to draw another line. I'm back to that grid. So for like down here, I use these lines as a grid. I'm back at it again. And then I'm turning it at, so like a pizza. Let's see, you get 8 slices in a pizza normally. I'm basically cutting a pizza right now. So I'll draw another straight line here. So I'm cutting it into 8ths. And that's how many petals we shall have. If you want more petals, then you can draw more lines. But that is roughly it. There we go. And again, I'm differing a little bit from here to this one. Okay, and so I've got this out. Now I'm going to draw my petals. So I'm going to go from out the angle. Basically, I guess, if you want, you can draw even more pizza slices and then just connect them. So I'm just connecting these lines here. And that's it. So there's a petal. That's one. And so I'm actually going to sketch in, instead of 8 pizza slices, now I have 16. And so I'm going to repeat that here at the bottom. So I'm going to loosely sketch this one in, sticking to my guidelines. All right. And I'm going to turn it because this gives me a different perspective. So if you, because I was eyeballing it, but if this petal looks around the same length as this one, then you're in pretty good shape. I think I need to make this one just slightly longer. When you establish the top and the bottom as the same length, there's a little room for, I guess I should say this, it's a good guide, because if these two are the same, you should be able to connect them from either side pretty equally. So that's why I like to do top and bottom first, because connecting those is going to be a little easier now that you have a guide. Okay, so there we go. And actually, I should have just kept my paper the other way. I'm sorry. I'm going to do the same thing here. So connecting these other 2 sides, establishing that line, and then bringing them together. Not pressing hard. And then repeating towards the bottom. There we go. Okay. Awesome. So right now it kind of looks like I don't really know, like a quasi cross here, but that is about it. Actually, I'm going to erase this. I made this one a little bit too long. Okay. And then these last parts are pretty easy because we already did the major petals first. So all you have to do is connect them. So we're getting pretty close to done with the drawing process here. And then I will show you how to draw stems. Some of these might be a little bit bigger, but that's okay. No flower is exactly symmetrical or exactly perfect, although there is a lot of beautiful symmetry in nature, like in butterflies or things like that. But yeah, there we go. So that's the basic premises of this last one. Again, I kind of divvied a little bit off of the original drawing over here, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And yeah, if you want to add these little like filigree, I don't know what these little parts are called on the flower, pollen parts, but yeah, so I'm going to add little ovals off to the side. Excuse me. Yes, people in the comments, thank you. You saved me. But yeah, I'm just drawing little ovals off to the side. kind of staggering them a little bit. And some might be a little bigger, some might be a little smaller, but that's about 7. That's good for me. Maybe I'll draw 1 more or 2 more up here. Why not? And then I'm just going to try and connect them. So again, when you draw the petals first, this part gets a lot easier. So I'm trying to connect these to that middle area. And make it look like natural. So there's a slight curve to these lines because I don't want them to just look straight. But yeah, and now with this smaller eraser, I'm going to erase on the inside areas. Oh, one down here. All right. So there we go. Just some, there we go. That's a little closer, more in focus. But that's our 3rd flower. So again, right now we've got 1 flower here, 1 big flower here, and 1 over there. And now I'm going to show you guys how to draw kind of the stems and kind of bring it all together into this format. And so basically I kind of have a stem already made right here. That was a very convenient area. But I'm just going to draw a pretty hardy stem. They're pretty thick. So this I'm just drawing from inside this area here, and I'm hoping this curve matches the center of the flower. So I'm just trying to mimic that and bring it around. So now we've got 2 parallel lines, and then that's pretty much it. That's your stem. What I do here is very basic. All I do is just draw a little swirl. And that's it. That's where I show where the scissors kind of cut it. But yeah, I'm just going to do that for these big major flowers first. So I'm going to draw a little oval and then a little squiggle, a little swirl, and there we go. And same with over here. I'm going to go from inside that central area and start to draw a line that will curve because of the bouquet. So there we go. And I remember at the very beginning, I drew little dots right here because that's where I want it to be tighter, because I'm going to draw a bow there to connect everything. So that's why it curves at this point. And then again, pretty beefy size. This is a pretty thick stem. This is also a pretty big flower. So I think it's kind of goes with the flower. And I'm trying to draw a parallel line the best I can. And I'll bring it around. And I always think bouquets look prettier when the middle has the longer stems and the outside has the shorter stems. So I'm going to make a U shape down here as well. So the middle area will be a little longer. There we go. That's our 2nd one. Oh, and I should erase this. I drew inside the flower. Okay. And then this one's way up here. So this might take a little bit more time, but I'm going to put it kind of in the middle here and draw it a little bit longer. So let's say maybe like here. And bring it towards the middle, have a slight curve. Oh, and I do want to mention at this part, because I'm drawing pretty loose, my hand is pretty far back on my pencil. When I'm working with detailing, I always have it right here because I got so much precision. But right now, I like to work like this. It gives me looser strokes. So I'm bringing this around. Again, trying to keep them parallel. And okay, there we go. And connect that. So our 3 major flowers are now, in here. I realize I'm a little bit short on time, but basically what I did right here, and I'll explain this, but right here, I just drew kind of a leaf shape. And this connects down here, kind of right near the bow, and ends here. So, and then I drew other smaller shapes because the smaller shapes will complement these larger ones. And these were mostly doodles. I had a little bit of reference in front of me, but basically I just drew some smaller bulbs and smaller flowers. These can be drawn the same way that this was drawn. I just followed kind of those lines in grid. And yeah, but I basically just drew filler stems at the bottom, but I really wanted to make sure that this stem for this big flower stood out. Same with this one. And again, right here, this connects all the way through and exits right there. So it kind of fills that space between these two flowers. And it adds more foliage or leaves because these will be colored probably pretty bright, and it brings in more greenery. So that's something you can also think of when you're drawing. And
that's actually a pretty good question.
Yes.
Let's see. Anne wants to know, this can be really quick. Can you show them how to do a leaf or two real fast?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me actually, because again, I wanted to show the outlining part with the pen, but I can keep going. I just don't want to run too far over time.
We got 8 minutes. That's enough time.
Okay. I'm always panicking. I'm like, do I have time?
Okay,
I'll go ahead and show this one. So down here, and let me kind of erase this real quick, this outline. Because I was focusing mostly today on the flower part, so I don't have too many different leaves here, but I will show the one that I do draw here, example. So because this is a bigger shape, I'm going to draw bigger petals for it. And I'm going to go from a little bit inside this petal and just draw a curve. So I'm drawing a curve, and I'll take this end point and connect it here just with another curve. And then this shape, I will draw kind of an opposite direction. So I've got two kind of curved shapes, the top and the middle and the stem part, the middle part, and the bottom are connecting. And the top, I drew just a little curve. Okay, and then I'm going to draw maybe another one. And this is, again, same with this flower shape, how the petals kind of fell as we went down. I'm going to curve this petal up a little bit more this time. So I'll curve it up a little bit. Actually, I'll draw this out a little bit further. And that's why we draw really light, so I can erase that real quick. There we go. So I'm bringing this out. And this shape will go kind of a similar curve. And then the top of the stem, or sorry, the top of this leaf will kind of be an opposite shape to close it off. I hope that helped a little bit, but actually that looks a lot like this over here. I didn't mean for that to happen. And then say you want to have a leaf down here, make it a little smaller. I'm drawing a little kind of curved hill and connecting this, and then drawing another connector. And you can kind of bring it inside. Instead of on the very edge of the stem, you can bring it inside a little bit to show that it's, you know, part of the stem here. Okay, and then I am going to show how to make the little bow real quick too. And I'm going to turn my page and draw two parallel lines of a slight, it's not a straight line, there's a slight curve to this. And another slight curve. Or maybe I'll draw this from the top and bottom. Actually, I like that better. Bring out my eraser because I want to change this up a little bit. And if I erase those stems, that's perfectly fine because I'm making a bow. So all good. But basically all I did here was draw two parallel lines with a slight little bend. And then I'll kind of connect these outside with a little curve. And then I put the bow kind of tilted to the right side, and I'm going to do that here too because I have this open space for now. And I'm going to draw a circle that goes outside the lines a little. So this is kind of outside the lines a little bit to show that it's going to be a knot. And then I'm going to kind of edit this a little bit and make a little curve at the top and have a few lines, signifying that it's more of a knot. And then this is a very basic bow, but I'm going to draw basically 2 petal shapes to either side. These same kind of petals up here, just like that. And then a bigger bow, kind of a widened heart shape, I guess. And I will lift this up in a second so you guys can see it. I'm just trying to rush here. So, and this bow is pretty big. I'm working quickly, so I could have done this better. But you see what I mean by a widened heart, or kind of like an apple, actually. There's a little curve here at the top, but it comes a little bit outside because this is the inside of the bow. And then you can draw 2 little lines that kind of come off here at the bottom. But yeah. 4 minutes left. Thank you. I'm working quick. Okay. Let me get to the outlining part. And if you guys need to, continue throughout your day, please just tune in and watch the recording because I'll have more outlining in that. There we go. So there's my bow. And then you just erase the lines underneath. But there we go. Okay. And I do want to show the outlining part now. So I've got this kind of thinner marker paper. It's really good for tracing, but not super thick not super thin like a tracing paper. But I'm just going to set this on top. And I might have needed to go press harder for you guys to see this. But essentially all you do here, and I'll use my other one for an example. You just place it on top and tape it down. I just have painter's tape, very basic. And trace on top of your drawing. And that way, if you need to practice more with your outlining with your pen, you can throw this paper away and get a new one out, easy peasy. But I'm just going to show a little bit here. I do hope this, I don't know if you guys can see this well enough. I think I should have outlined this a little bit darker for you guys, but I'm going to take Multiliner 0.5. And what's important about these Multiliner pens is that they are compatible with Copic markers. So these are water-based, whereas the alcohol Copic markers obviously are alcohol-based. So these will not blend or bleed with your Copic markers, which is awesome. So I really love that feature. Okay, this paper is taken, because I think somebody asked in the chat where this tracing paper came from. This is it. It's a Borden and Riley smooth cotton marker paper. It's just a lot thinner than normal. I think it says 13 pound. So that's how you can get the tracing capabilities. Yeah, if you don't have a Multiliner, if you have like a Micron or any other type of like a Sharpie even, that's okay for now. But I'm just going to show this really quickly. And I'm just tracing over this. And I might just do one flower and not get to the whole bouquet. But I'm going back and forth, kind of left to right. If my hand is blocking this right now as I draw, I'm sorry. But I'll move it once I finish this first shape. This curves in. Oh, and this isn't an actual tracing paper. This is just a very thin marker paper. So if you're using tracing paper, which you can do, it just has more of a filmy texture to it. It's not bad, but this is an actual marker paper, so you can still color on it if you want to. And this is just very quickly the outline. And let me try and place it on top. I shouldn't have lifted that up, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to do the first layer here, as I know it's about 1 hour. And I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm sure Nate was in the chat busy talking to you guys, but I really appreciate joining, and I really hope you guys learned something today with these flowers. Slow and steady, and just really trying to be patient and go over all of my pencil marks underneath. So I think if you go from the bottom part of the petal, it's easier because it flows directly into that curve. And so I'll go and do this one as well. And really connect those. I really hope my hand isn't blocking this too much. Okay, let's see. Ooh, this one's fun. Okay, this is interesting. So down here, I'm actually going to skip this petal. I'm going to go down one, and you'll see why. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit far, and then I will connect that. But it's going to overlap into the next petal, so we really get some dimensionality right there. Yeah, so right here, and I'll lift this up when I'm done with this first layer, but this petal actually overlaps into the other one. So it's really going to bring out some pop. And I will kind of work on this other side here. I at least want to finish this first layer. And for those of you staying past this hour mark, thank you. I know I took a little bit of time with the drawing. Okay, let's see this curve. And I'll bring this one around. Okay, now there's some details in there I want to touch up in a second, but I will pick this up and show this. I mean, look at how clean that looks. Oh my goodness, so nice. Okay, so what I did, and while I hold this here with my hand, so right here is what I was talking about. I chose to draw this shape on the bottom first because I wanted this petal to kind of overlap that one. So it really brings out some dimensionality there. Okay, do you ever switch? I see a question. Do you ever switch pens for line thickness? Yes, I do. So this one is my thicker of the two I'm using today. This one's 0.5. And I have another one, 0.3. Oh, is that focused in camera view? Yeah, there we go. So 0.3 is a little bit thinner. And these are my two favorites. Copic multiliner pens go down to 0.003, which is very thin, and they go up to 1.0, so very thick. So the nice thing about Copic multiliner is that you have all that variation, which is wonderful. But for example, I can use 0.3 for detailing. So this part I don't need to trace over, but I can draw little flick marks, like little hatching marks like this. They're just little lines. And I can draw that from the bottom of this shape. I'm going to draw little lines. And this is 0.3 multiliner pen. I'm not going too far up. But there we go. You get some nice texture there and you show some depth. That bottom part of the bulb is a little bit darker. Excuse me. And then we can kind of fill in, I'm going to fill in this dark area here where there's no kind of bulb. Oh yeah, thank you guys. I see people logging out here in the chat. Thank you guys so much. And even inside here, I can add a few of these flicking marks to show that they are behind these in the front. And I can repeat that over here. And maybe a few at the top and a few on the bottom. So now with that 0.3, I can start to add in those details. So this is going to bring it even more depth and kind of realism there. And I can do the same thing with the petals. So for example, going from inside here and flicking out, that's going to show some more as well. So I'll do a little bit here with my 0.3. I'm 5 minutes over, so I'm okay. I'll try and wrap this up soon. And I do want to mention while I'm flicking this, if you don't want to use a thin marker paper or you don't have any, I would suggest a light box, getting like a little light box or like an LED light table. When I was in college and I had very tight deadlines, I would use those to transfer my sketches, just like I showed you guys today. I would place this on a light box and then just draw all over it because it really made it go faster. So that is another recommendation. They're not too expensive, but I think it's definitely worth it if you're drawing a lot. And the nice thing is you don't have to mess up on your good paper. You can mess up on a scrap sheet of paper and then just trace over it nice and clean like this. Okay, well, let me cap that real quick. Okay, so there we go. I used 0.5 to outline everything and 0.3 to fill in those areas of the petal. So I'm getting really close to my camera here. I hope you guys can see. But yeah, don't we to hold it here so anyone could take a screenshot? I see people in the chat maybe saying that. But yeah, the flick marks can really add dimension and they can really make things stand out. Another thing I would recommend is if you want to add dots or stippling, that really helps too, instead of just the lines. Nate, do we have a date for the July class?
I don't think so.
Look on
I usually find out about these a couple weeks in advance. So, Michael's Nate, do you know?
I think it's Thursday, July 8th.
Let me put that in the chat.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't have full access to that on my own, but if you see that on your end, I would trust that. Because
it's usually 1 month. They're usually spaced out pretty even. So today's the 11th of June. I'm going to say it's probably July 8th, but you can look on the Michael's class sign up. What'd you say?
I said that sounds about right.
Okay. Yeah, and then since we're kind of 10 minutes over, I don't know if I should keep tracing, but is there anything else you guys want to see specifically? Just let us know in the chat. Or if you want to hold this up again, or, you know, I don't know which part, but I'll hold this up again. This was our reference today. And next class, I will show you coloring. I've got 12 colors I'm going to use. This was our sketch earlier today. And then this is what I did, kind of tracing over, adding some detailing. Okay, so people want to take a picture of this sketch. Oh, is it people want pictures of this? I'm not sure. But I'll hold this here for a second so people can see. This was our sketch.
Nisha wants to know what colors we'll need. We'll actually have a materials list just like we did for this one. So
yeah, and this is a more advanced version, but this is, and this, you can see all my swatching and my practice here, but this is basically what I'll be showing next class. This one's a really advanced bouquet, but I'll be showing, and you can see my hatch marks there. So there's lines in here. There's combination of yellows and violets, but these colors here I swatched at the top. Those are the colors. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just want to show this for a little teaser because I'll show you how to color like this next month. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I like it. And this is more simplified, and this is what I'll be using as my coloring base. This was for another drawing, but we've got so much detail going on here, and really makes things stand out.
Oh, so I do have confirmation from Karina, one of mine and Shannon's coworkers, July 8th, Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
So it's 11 Pacific. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else want to see anything or do anything here?
Actually, Shannon, can you show them that card with the social media?
Yes. This is it. Yeah, so your drawings today, please feel free to hashtag Make It With Michaels, hashtag Copic With Us. We have Michael's Instagram, Copic Official US Instagram, and then I have my name here at the bottom. That's my Instagram. So that is basically how you can connect with us on social media. And I see Michael's Nate has put that in the chat too. Yep. So thank you.
To answer Diane's question, Shannon has done a bunch of these classes. So
yes, I have. But yeah, and then somebody I think said, how do I make the bulbs? These ones here. I'll bring out my sketch from before. This bulb here in the middle is just based off of a circle with individual ovals in the middle. And I just repeat that on either side. And then here's the colored one again. And I'll show it a little bit closer. And I think somebody asked about opaque white. These dots you see here, that was actually with the Zero blender. So that's using the Copic colorless blender. And that's a really nice technique. Same with these streak lines here. That's with the Zero blender as well. But yeah, this is a kind of a teaser for the next class. And quickly show other shading techniques. Yeah, so for example, let's see, maybe this one I'll trace over really quick. And I know I'm over time, so if you guys need to go, I'm just doing this really quick. I'll trace this shape. Oh, with a thicker, my 0.5. So I'm going to move pretty quick here. And I'm actually going to go around. Okay, I know that that's only part of the shape, but I do want to show that stippling technique I was mentioning. So all you do here is add little dots. So I'm just going to do one petal here because it does take time. And it's a little bit of strain on your wrist if you're not used to it. But yeah, all you do is add little dots. And it's very awesome looking when you're done. But yeah, like I said, definitely take breaks because this can hurt your wrist after a while. But all I'm doing is adding more dots towards the center and more spaced out dots at the top. Because I know the middle, I want to show that it's darker. And this is very quick, but that's kind of the stippling technique. So to show depth in that petal, all I did was add a bunch of dots in a short space towards the bottom, and then I spaced them out more as I went out towards the outside of the petal. I hope that answers the question, but that's the stippling technique. And I don't think I actually use that in the colored version, but that's just another way you can use your multiliner pen. And the PDF of this for is going to be available for the July class. So for the July class, you guys can print this and download it and print it and use it and follow along with me. So, but for today, we didn't include it because I wanted to teach you guys how to draw. But for the next class, you guys can use this and just follow along right with me. I think the July class, there's a certain amount of days before it's actually showing up on Michael's. So just wait a little bit. And I think closer towards July 8th, it should be available. Can you show closer? Okay, do you want me to show this? I'll show this closer. Just in case you guys want a screenshot. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm seeing some compliments in there. You guys warm my heart. Well, sweet. I'm really glad I was helpful. And thank you guys so much for joining today. I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, July 8th, I think it was at 11 a.m. Pacific. So wherever you're joining from, the US, Canada, abroad, thank you guys for joining. We really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to show some pretty kick-ass coloring here in the next month. So I hope you guys can join, and I'm really excited to show that. Oh, I'll bring this little tag in just in case. So thank you guys. And I will see you guys next month. Have a nice day.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you guys. Bye.